Florence, a city of art, beauty, and hidden shadows. For centuries, the Medici family ruled this glittering hub, their name synonymous with power, wealth, and fierce ambition. But behind the grandeur, beneath the gilded ceilings of their palaces, danger lurked. Assassins plotted in dark alleys, rival families schemed in secret chambers, and entire armies marched on their gates. The Medici survived, not just through their genius or their gold, but because of those who stood by them, fiercely loyal to the very end. Some were famous, many were forgotten, their names whispered in dust, their deeds lost to time. It is time to uncover their stories. Prepare to meet 7 unsung guardians who risked everything to protect the dynasty that shaped the Renaissance. Number 7, Simone Piacentini. The narrow, winding streets of Florence held 1,000 secrets, each stone worn smooth by generations of footsteps. During the late 15th and early 16th centuries, when the Medici family faced its greatest exiles, these streets became silent witnesses to whispers, clandestine meetings, and the desperate efforts of loyalists to bring their beloved patrons home. Among these silent heroes was Simone Piacentini, a name rarely found in the grand histories, but one that echoed in the hidden passages and dimly lit courtyards of the city. Simone was not a soldier, a banker, or a diplomat. He was a messenger, a conduit, a silent thread in the intricate tapestry of loyalty that stretched across the Italian peninsula. His story begins in 1494, a year that tore Florence apart. The Medici family, led by Piero the Unfortunate, had mishandled negotiations with the invading French King Charles VIII. The proud Florentine citizens, already simmering with Republican fervor, rose up. But Piero, along with his brothers Giovanni and Giuliano, fled the city in haste, their palaces ransacked, their power seemingly shattered. For nearly 2 decades, Florence existed without the Medici, a republic guided by figures like the fiery Friar Savonarola and later, the political genius Niccolo Machiavelli. But even in exile, the Medici did not forget their claim, and a network of dedicated individuals worked tirelessly to pave the way for their return. Simone Piacentini was one of them. Simone's days were a blend of routine and sudden, heart-stopping danger. He possessed an uncanny ability to blend into the crowds, to move through bustling markets and quiet alleys unnoticed. His face was unremarkable, his clothes plain, his demeanor unassuming. This was his greatest asset. He carried no grand titles, no family crest. His only identifier was the discreet signal, the specific turn of phrase, the coded message that marked him as a reliable link in the Medici's exiled intelligence network. He knew the hidden paths out of Florence, the back roads that bypassed vigilant guards, the isolated farmhouses where a change of horses could be arranged in the dead of night. He knew which inns were safe and which taverns harbored informants for the Florentine Republic. One crisp autumn morning in 1500, a message arrived for Simone in a small, unassuming inkwell. It was from Cardinal Giovanni de' Medici, who would later become Pope Leo X, then living in Rome. The inkwell, a gift from a distant relative, contained a false bottom. Inside, a tiny scroll of parchment, rolled tighter than a quill shaft, held a series of symbols. Simone, trained by years of quiet service, knew the cipher. He spent hours translating the intricate script in a hidden room above a baker's shop, the aroma of fresh bread masking the scent of lamp oil and the quiet scratching of his pen. The message detailed the cardinal's latest efforts to secure papal support for the Medici's cause and outlined a risky plan to contact disillusioned Florentine nobles. Simone's task was to deliver specific instructions to 3 key families within the city walls, each hidden in a different district. The challenge was immense. The Florentine Republic maintained a close watch on anyone suspected of Medici's sympathies. Gates were guarded, letters were intercepted, and public squares often held speakers denouncing the exiled family. Simone devised a series of elaborate covers. For the first delivery, he posed as a traveling merchant selling rare spices from the east. His cart, filled with fragrant cinnamon and pungent cloves, allowed him to approach the residence of the noble family under the guise of commerce. The specific nutmeg he offered, subtly marked, contained the miniaturized message. The risk was palpable. A single wrong word, a suspicious glance, could lead to his arrest, torture, and the unraveling of the entire network. But Simone's calm exterior never wavered. He conducted his business, made his exchange, and left the palace courtyard with the same unhurried pace he had arrived with, his heart beating a silent drum against his ribs. His second delivery involved a different disguise. He became a stonemason, seeking work on the new additions to a monastery. He carried his tools with him, his hands calloused, his clothes dusted with lime. The noble family he sought was known for its piety and its patronage of religious institutions. Within the monastery walls, as he ostensibly repaired a crumbling archway, he passed a small, lead-weighted fishing line down a drainpipe to a specific window below. Attached to the line was a tiny, waterproof pouch containing the next set of instructions. The family, alerted by a pre-arranged signal, retrieved the pouch without drawing attention. Simone spent the entire day chipping at stone, his back aching, his mind alert to every sound, every shadow, until the task was complete. The third and final delivery required the most daring approach. The family in question lived in a fortified palazzo, guarded by stern, Republican-leaning soldiers. Simone posed as a wandering minstrel, his lute slung over his shoulder, his voice thin but pleasant. He positioned himself in the piazza outside the palazzo, playing simple, melancholic tunes that spoke of longing and lost glory. He knew that one of the young women of the house, a distant cousin of the Medici, often listened from a secluded balcony. As he played a specific, pre-arranged melody, he subtly tossed a small, weighted flower, carefully wrapped in a silk ribbon, towards the balcony. The flower contained the final part of the message. The young woman, feigning indifference, casually picked it up as if it had simply fallen from a passing cart. The guards remained impassive, their gaze sweeping over the crowd, seeing nothing but a common street performer. Simone's work was not limited to Florence. He traversed the perilous routes between Rome, Bologna, Venice, and other cities where Medici loyalists and allies resided. He carried not only messages, but also small, precious artifacts, a ring, a miniature portrait, a piece of fabric each imbued with symbolic meaning, or containing a hidden compartment. These items often served as proof of authenticity, verifying the messenger's identity to skeptical recipients. He endured long, solitary journeys, sleeping under the stars, his meager rations often supplemented by the kindness of strangers or the occasional wild game he could snare. The bandits roamed the roads, and political spies were everywhere, yet Simone moved with a ghost-like efficiency, his dedication unwavering. During the period leading up to the Medici's dramatic return in 1512, Simone's role became even more critical. Pope Julius II, a fierce opponent of French influence in Italy, assembled the Holy League, an alliance aimed at expelling the French from Italian soil. Cardinal Giovanni de' Medici became a key figure in this league. Simone Piacentini carried the urgent dispatches, the delicate diplomatic overtures, and the intelligence reports that helped coordinate the efforts of the League and the pro-Medici factions within Florence. He might have been among the first to bring news of the Holy League's victory over the French at the Battle of Ravenna in 1512, a triumph that severely weakened the Florentine Republic's position. When the Spanish army, acting on behalf of the Holy League and the Medici, approached Florence in August 1512, the city braced for a siege. The Republic, stripped of French support, was vulnerable. Simone Piacentini was likely active within the city, reporting on the morale of the populace, the strength of the defenses, and the shifting loyalties of key families. He might have been a silent observer, as the Spanish troops, angered by resistance, sacked the nearby town of Prato, a horrific event that broke Florence's will to resist. The city capitulated. On September 1st, 1512, the Medici family, led by Cardinal Giovanni, marched back into Florence, their long exile finally over. And Simone Piacentini, the quiet messenger, did not march with the triumphant procession. He likely remained in the shadows, his work done, his name unrecorded in the lavish histories of the Medici return. His reward was the sight of the family he served once more at the helm of Florence, their power restored. He faded back into the anonymity that had been his strength, a silent sentinel who ensured the lines of communication remained open when the Medici were at their most vulnerable. His story is a testament to the countless unseen efforts, the constant vigilance, and the profound loyalty that sustained a dynasty through its darkest hours. Number 6. Pietro di Bernardo. The Pazzi conspiracy of 1478 remains one of the most brutal and audacious attacks on the Medici family. It was a moment of shocking violence within the sacred confines of Florence Cathedral, a day that forever stained the city's history. While the names of the main conspirators and the Medici brothers, Lorenzo and Giuliano, are etched into the annals, countless others played a part, some unwittingly, some bravely, in the chaotic events of that fateful Sunday. Among those who rose to the occasion, standing against the torrent of betrayal, was Pietro di Bernardo, an unsung Florentine citizen whose fierce loyalty and immediate action helped turn the tide of a desperate situation. His story is not one of grand strategy or political maneuvering, but of raw courage in the face of sudden, murderous intent. On April 26, 1478, the feast of St. Mark, Florence was abuzz. The Medici brothers, Lorenzo the Magnificent, and his younger brother Giuliano attended Mass at the Duomo, the magnificent cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore. The air inside the vast church was heavy with incense and the murmur of prayers. Lorenzo and Giuliano stood near the altar, surrounded by their retinue and many prominent Florentine citizens. The conspirators, led by members of the rival Pazzi family and supported by Archbishop Salviati and even Pope Sixtus IV, had chosen this moment for their deadly strike. The plan was to assassinate both brothers simultaneously, thus crippling the Medici and allowing the Pazzi to seize control of Florence. The moment of attack came during the elevation of the host, a sacred moment when all heads were bowed in reverence. Francesco de Pazzi and Bernardo Bandini Baroncelli lunged at Giuliano. Simultaneously, others attacked Lorenzo. Chaos erupted, swords flashed, screams pierced the hallowed silence. Giuliano, caught off guard, fell quickly, stabbed multiple times. He died on the cathedral floor, his body riddled with wounds. Lorenzo, though wounded in the neck, fought back with astonishing ferocity. He drew his dagger and defended himself, while his loyal companions, Francesco Nori and Poliziano, threw themselves between him and his attackers. Nori, as later accounts confirmed, took a fatal blow meant for Lorenzo, sacrificing his own life. Amidst this terrifying pandemonium, while many congregants fled in terror, Pietro di Bernardo, a silk merchant known for his quiet demeanor and deep respect for the Medici, did not hesitate. He had been attending Mass with his family, standing a few rows behind Lorenzo. When the attack began, Pietro, a man of stout build and steady hands, instinctively moved towards the fray. He did not possess a sword or a dagger. His only weapon was his raw courage and the heavy wooden staff he carried for support due to a slight limp. Pietro saw the glint of steel, the desperate struggle around Lorenzo. He witnessed Francesco Nori fall. Without a thought for his own safety, Pietro plunged into the chaos. He used his staff to deflect a sword blow aimed at Lorenzo's head, the impact jarring his arms but buying a precious second. He then shoved one of the assassins, Andrea Cavalcanti, sending him stumbling. This brief disruption allowed Lorenzo, despite his wounds, to push through the crowd and make for the sacristy doors, a path to relative safety. The cathedral guards, initially stunned by the sudden, sacrilegious violence, began to react. Pietro, fueled by a surge of protective instinct, continued to engage the remaining conspirators around Lorenzo, not allowing them to pursue him effectively. He shouted warnings to other citizens, urging them to intervene to protect their patron. His voice, usually soft, now resonated with a desperate clarity, cutting through the general panic. He even managed to grab a discarded dagger from the floor and used it to fend off another attacker, though he received a superficial cut to his arm in the process. As Lorenzo and his companions secured themselves in the sacristy, locking the heavy bronze doors, the realization of what had just transpired began to sink in for the Florentine populace. The assassination attempt was Not just an attack on the Medici, it was an attack on Florence itself, a violation of its holiest sanctuary. The people, who had initially fled, now rallied. The Pazzi conspirators, instead of being hailed as liberators as they had expected, found themselves facing the wrath of an enraged populace. Pietro di Bernardo, his face smudged with blood and sweat, emerged from the immediate crush of the attack. He joined the growing number of loyal Florentines who, upon hearing the news, began to hunt down the conspirators in the streets. He saw the Archbishop Salviati, one of the main orchestrators of the plot, being dragged from the Palazzo della Signoria, the city's governmental seat. He witnessed the swift, brutal justice that followed. Many of the conspirators were captured and summarily executed, their bodies hanged from the windows of the palazzo. The people shouted, "Pell! Pell!" the rallying cry of the Medici, referring to the balls on their coat of arms. In the days that followed, Florence was a cauldron of fury and loyalty. The Pazzi family's properties were ransacked, their emblems defaced. Lorenzo, though mourning his brother Giuliano, was hailed as a hero. He visited the wounded, acknowledged those who had defended him. Pietro di Bernardo, nursing his minor wounds, received a quiet thank you from one of Lorenzo's officials, a recognition of his swift and decisive action. He did not seek further accolades. He was a merchant, not a knight or a courtier. His actions were driven by a sense of duty to his city and to the family he believed brought stability and prosperity to Florence. Pietro returned to his silk shop, his limp perhaps a little more pronounced, his memories forever seared by the events of that Sunday. His story, like that of many other ordinary citizens who performed extraordinary acts of bravery, was quickly overshadowed by the grand narratives of political intrigue and dynastic survival. He was one of the many who, without public recognition or lasting fame, instinctively protected the Medici when they were at their most vulnerable. His actions inside the Duomo, a spontaneous act of courage, directly contributed to Lorenzo's escape, a survival that secured the Medici's power for another generation and profoundly shaped the course of the Renaissance. Pietro di Bernardo, the quiet merchant, proved that heroism does not always wear armor or command armies, but can be found in the swift, selfless act of a loyal heart. Number 5. Giovanni Battista da Sangallo. In the turbulent centuries of the Renaissance, power in Florence was not merely held by wealth or political acumen. It was also defended by stone and mortar, by the strategic genius of architects who understood the art of war as intimately as they understood the principles of beauty. As the Medici family consolidated its hold on Florence, particularly in the chaotic aftermath of the exiles and the rise of the duchy, the need for impregnable defenses became paramount. Castles, fortresses, and city walls were not just symbols of authority, they were the very bones of Medici survival. Among the master builders and military engineers who shaped these defenses, Giovanni Battista da Sangallo, often overshadowed by his more famous brother, Antonio the Younger, played a crucial, though quiet, role. His legacy is etched not in grand sculptures or frescoes, but in the unyielding strength of fortified bastions and the strategic placement of defensive towers. Giovanni Battista da Sangallo, known to many as Il Gobbo because of a slight hunchback, was a member of a renowned family of architects and engineers. His uncle, Giuliano da Sangallo, and his brother Antonio da Sangallo the Younger were celebrated for their work on churches, palaces, and fortifications across Italy. While Antonio often received the grand commissions and public acclaim, Giovanni Battista was the meticulous craftsman, the skilled draftsman, and the practical implementer. He was the one who translated complex theoretical designs into solid defensible structures. His dedication to the craft of military engineering was unwavering, a quality that Cosimo I de' Medici, the first Grand Duke of Tuscany, valued immensely. Cosimo I, who rose to power in 1537 after the assassination of Duke Alessandro de' Medici, faced immense challenges. His position was precarious, challenged by exiled Florentine republicans and powerful foreign rivals. To secure his new duchy, Cosimo understood that he needed not only a loyal army, but also an unshakable system of defenses. Florence, despite its beauty, had proven vulnerable during previous sieges. Cosimo envisioned a network of fortresses that would protect the city and its surrounding territories, stamping his authority on the landscape. This is where Giovanni Battista da Sangallo's expertise became indispensable. One of Giovanni Battista's most significant contributions was his involvement in the construction of the Fortezza da Basso in Florence. Begun shortly before Cosimo's rise, this massive fortress, designed by Antonio da Sangallo the Younger and Pier Francesco da Viterbo, was a testament to the latest in military engineering. Its star-shaped bastions, thick walls, and strategic angles were meant to withstand cannon fire and provide overlapping fields of fire for defenders. Giovanni Battista was instrumental in overseeing the practical construction, ensuring that the ambitious designs were executed with precision. He spent countless hours on site, supervising stonemasons, carpenters, and laborers, resolving engineering challenges, and ensuring the structural integrity of every wall and rampart. His work on the Fortezza da Basso was not just about building walls. It was about creating a deterrent, a symbol of Medici power that would crush any thoughts of rebellion from within or invasion from without. The fortress could house a substantial garrison, store provisions, and provide a secure refuge for the Medici family in times of crisis. Giovanni Battista's attention to detail, his understanding of load-bearing capacities, and his knowledge of the destructive power of siege weaponry meant that the Fortezza da Basso became a formidable obstacle for anyone contemplating an attack on Florence. Beyond the Fortezza da Basso, Giovanni Battista was also involved in strengthening the defenses of other key Medici territories. He worked on fortifications in Pisa, Livorno, and other strategic coastal towns, ensuring that the Grand Duchy had secure access to the sea and protected its trade routes. He would travel to these sites, assessing the terrain, identifying weaknesses in existing structures, and proposing improvements based on cutting-edge military theory. His plans often incorporated new ideas like angled bastions that minimized dead zones for artillery and allowed for continuous defensive fire. One specific instance of Giovanni Battista's practical genius was his improvement of the citadel of Arezzo. The city, important for its position on trade routes to Rome, needed stronger defenses. Giovanni Battista arrived with his surveying tools and a small team of engineers. He meticulously analyzed the existing walls, noting their vulnerabilities to modern cannon fire. He then designed a series of low-slung, earth-filled bastions that could absorb the impact of artillery shells far more effectively than traditional high walls. He supervised the excavation of vast amounts of earth and the meticulous layering of stone and soil, creating an almost impenetrable barrier. The citizens of Arezzo watched as the hunched architect, often covered in dust and mud, directed hundreds of laborers, transforming their ancient city's defenses into a modern stronghold. Giovanni Battista's contributions extended to the practical application of artillery. He was knowledgeable about the latest cannon designs and understood how to position them for maximum effect. He advised on the placement of embrasures and gun ports within the fortresses, ensuring that the cannons had wide fields of fire and were protected from enemy counterfire. His expertise meant that the Medici fortresses were not just strong, but also intelligently armed, ready to respond with devastating force to any threat. His life was one of tireless work, often in the shadow of his more famous brother. He spent his days on construction sites, exposed to the elements, dealing with logistical challenges and managing large workforces. He likely experienced the constant pressure of Cosimo I's demands for security and efficiency. He died in 1548, relatively young, his health possibly compromised by the arduous nature of his work. While his name might not resonate as loudly as the sculptors or painters who graced the Medici courts, Giovanni Battista da Sangallo's legacy is undeniably massive. The fortresses he helped build, the walls he strengthened, and the defensive strategies he implemented were fundamental to Cosimo I's ability to secure his rule, establish the Grand Duchy of Tuscany, and protect the Medici dynasty for generations to come. Without these silent guardians of stone and earth, meticulously planned and expertly executed by engineers like Giovanni Battista, the Medici's hold on Florence would have been far more tenuous, perpetually vulnerable to the shifting tides of power in Renaissance Italy. Number 4. Jacopo da Diaceto. The year 1537 was a moment of profound crisis and opportunity for the Medici family. Duke Alessandro de' Medici, the first Duke of Florence, had been brutally assassinated by his cousin Lorenzino de' Medici. Florence was plunged into uncertainty. The future of the Medici dynasty hung by a thread. The Republican exiles, seeing a chance to overthrow the ducal rule, began to stir, threatening to reclaim the city for the old republic. In this vacuum of power, a young, unexpected figure emerged as the next Medici leader, the 17-year-old Cosimo de' Medici. Cosimo was a distant cousin, a boy who had been raised in the countryside, seemingly far removed from the cutthroat politics of Florence. His claim was weak, his experience non-existent. Yet, he ascended to power, and his success was due in no small part to the quiet, astute guidance of men like Jacopo da Diaceto. Jacopo da Diaceto was not a soldier who fought battles, nor a banker who controlled fortunes. He was a scholar, a humanist, and a trusted advisor to Maria Salviati, Cosimo's mother. He possessed a keen intellect, a deep understanding of Florentine politics, and an unwavering loyalty to the Medici family. When Alessandro was murdered, many prominent Florentines, including powerful cardinals and noblemen, saw an opportunity to install a weak, easily controlled ruler who would quickly relinquish the ducal power and restore the republic. They chose Cosimo precisely because of his youth and perceived lack of ambition, believing he would be a puppet. Jacopo da Diaceto saw something else entirely. From the moment news of Alessandro's death reached the Medici circles, Jacopo understood the urgency. He knew that the powerful Republican exiles, such as the Strozzi family, were already mobilizing. Their forces, led by Piero Strozzi, were gathering outside the city walls, ready to march on Florence and restore the Republic. The city itself was tense, filled with rumors and shifting allegiances. Cosimo, a boy just coming of age, needed immediate, decisive, and intelligent guidance. Jacopo da Diaceto moved quickly. He helped to secure Cosimo's initial election as head of the Florentine Republic in 1537. This election was not a simple matter. It involved intense political maneuvering, convincing powerful factions within the city that Cosimo was the best choice, a moderate who would ensure stability. Jacopo likely worked behind the scenes, using his network of contacts and his reputation for integrity to sway opinions and build consensus around the young Cosimo. He understood that presenting Cosimo as a temporary agreeable figure was crucial to gaining the initial support needed to prevent immediate chaos. Crucially, Jacopo recognized Cosimo's innate shrewdness and ambition, qualities that others overlooked. He also understood that the Republic, as it had existed, was too unstable, too prone to internal strife. For Florence to thrive, it needed a strong, centralized ruler. Jacopo quietly advised Cosimo on how to gradually consolidate his power, how to outmaneuver the very men who thought they were manipulating him. He helped Cosimo navigate the treacherous political landscape, warning him of potential betrayals and suggesting alliances. When the Republican exiles under Piero Strozzi finally marched on Florence in late July 1537, culminating in the Battle of Montemurlo, Jacopo da Diaceto's role became even more critical, though still from the shadows. While the military victory for Cosimo's forces was achieved by the imperial troops under Alessandro Vitelli, Jacopo had been instrumental in building the political and financial support that allowed Cosimo to field such an army. He helped secure the necessary loans, ensured the loyalty of key Florentine companies, and coordinated intelligence on the Strozzi's movements. He worked to rally support for Cosimo within the city, preventing an internal uprising that could have fatally weakened the defenses. After the decisive victory at Montemerlo, where the Republican forces were crushed, Cosimo moved quickly to solidify his rule. Jacopo da Diaceto was at his side, advising him on how to deal with the defeated rebels, how to restructure the Florentine government to prevent future challenges, and how to establish the groundwork for a true duchy. He helped Cosimo understand the nuances of governance, the importance of a loyal bureaucracy, and the need for a strong, unified state. Jacopo pushed for firm, but not excessively cruel, treatment of the defeated, understanding that stability came from a measured approach. Jacopo became one of Cosimo's key intellectual pillars. He was a trusted confidant, a man who could speak truth to power, offering unvarnished advice without fear. He was not interested in personal enrichment or public glory. His motivation was the stability and prosperity of Florence, and he believed Cosimo was the leader who could deliver it. He helped Cosimo establish the foundations of his administration, advising on legal reforms and the organization of the ducal court. His calm, scholarly approach provided a crucial counterpoint to the more impulsive and often ruthless young duke. His influence was quiet but pervasive. He fostered a court environment where learning and intellectual discourse were valued, helping to attract scholars and artists who would contribute to Cosimo's image as a Renaissance prince. He understood that legitimacy was not just about military might, but also about cultural prestige and intellectual strength. He was a constant presence in Cosimo's early years, a steady hand guiding the raw talent of the young duke towards effective governance. Jacopo da Diaceto died in 1547, a decade after Cosimo's ascent. By then, Cosimo's rule was firmly established. Florence had transitioned from a fragile republic to a stable authoritarian duchy under the Medici. This transformation, a pivotal moment in Florentine history, owes a significant debt to the quiet, intellectual loyalty of Jacopo da Diaceto. He did not lead armies or command public attention, but his astute counsel, his careful political maneuvering, and his unwavering belief in Cosimo's potential were fundamental in navigating the most dangerous period of the Medici's re-establishment. He was the silent architect of Cosimo's early success, a forgotten hero whose intellect and dedication shaped the destiny of Florence and the Medici dynasty for generations to come. Number 3. Giuliano de' Medici. The Medici family's hold on Florence was often challenged by rivals, none more audacious than the Pazzi. The year 1478 was a turning point, a brutal attempt to sever the Medici lineage. While Lorenzo the Magnificent, the elder brother, survived the Pazzi conspiracy, his younger sibling, Giuliano de' Medici, met a tragic end on the cathedral floor. His death is well known, a dark chapter in Medici history. Yet Giuliano himself, often remembered simply as the victim, was also a defender. His actions in those final moments, though tragically brief, reveal a protective instinct and a readiness to confront danger, making him an unsung hero of the family he was born into. His defense was not a long campaign or a strategic maneuver, but a desperate, personal struggle against overwhelming odds. Giuliano de' Medici, born in 1453, was the younger brother of Lorenzo. Unlike Lorenzo, who was destined for the intricate world of politics and banking, Giuliano was known for his charm, his athleticism, and his love for fine arts. He was a connoisseur of beauty, a patron of artists, and a skilled horseman. He was often seen in the streets of Florence, mingling with common citizens, his genial nature endearing him to many. His public popularity was immense, a valuable asset to the Medici family's image. He was the more approachable face of the dynasty, a stark contrast to Lorenzo's intense intellectual and political pursuits. On April 26, 1478, Giuliano joined Lorenzo and their retinue for High Mass at the Duomo. The day was supposed to be a celebration, a public display of Medici piety and prosperity. The Pazzi conspirators, however, saw it as their opportunity. They had planned their attack with chilling precision, aiming to strike both brothers simultaneously during the most sacred moment of the Mass, the elevation of the host. The goal was to decapitate the Medici power structure and seize control of Florence. As the bells chimed for the elevation, the conspirators moved. Francesco de' Pazzi and Bernardo Bandini Baroncelli, among others, targeted Giuliano. He was standing near the altar, probably bowing his head in prayer, when the first blows struck. Contemporary accounts describe a sudden, vicious flurry of daggers. Giuliano, despite his athletic build, was caught completely by surprise within the crowded, confined space. He did not have time to draw a weapon or fully defend himself. Yet, even in that moment of shocking violence, Giuliano did not simply collapse. He struggled, attempting to shield himself and perhaps even reach for a weapon, though he was likely unarmed. He twisted and turned, deflecting a blow with his arm, taking multiple stabs to his body. His resistance, though ultimately futile against the sheer number of attackers, was a desperate act of self-preservation and defiance. It was a defense of his own life, a life inextricably linked to the Medici legacy. Francesco de' Pazzi, consumed by a brutal fervor, struck Giuliano with such force that he wounded himself in the leg. Bernardo Bandini Baroncelli, a particularly vicious assailant, plunged his dagger into Giuliano's chest, delivering the fatal blow. Giuliano de' Medici fell to the cold marble floor of the cathedral, bleeding profusely, his life ebbing away amidst the screams of the congregants and the clash of steel. He suffered 19 wounds, a testament to the savagery of the attack. His death was swift and brutal. But his defiance, however brief, was a crucial part of the unfolding drama. While his brother Lorenzo fought his way to safety, Giuliano absorbed the full force of the conspiracy's fury. His sacrifice allowed the Pazzi to focus their initial chaotic energy on him, potentially diverting attention and valuable seconds from Lorenzo. In the chaos of the moment, every second mattered. Giuliano's struggle, his refusal to simply fall, however short, was a form of defense. It was a testament to his own courage, and a protective act for his family line, even if it cost him his life. The immediate aftermath of Giuliano's death was a furious outpouring of grief and vengeance from the Florentine people. His body was carried from the Duomo, a grim reminder of the conspiracy's bloody success on one front. The public reaction was swift and overwhelming. Instead of rallying to the Pazzi, the Florentine populace rose up in defense of the Medici. Giuliano's popularity, his genial nature, and the sheer brutality of his assassination within the consecrated cathedral ignited a wave of popular fury. Citizens, enraged by the sacrilege and the attack on their beloved family, hunted down the conspirators in the streets. Giuliano's very death galvanized the people. His spilled blood on the cathedral floor became a symbol of the Pazzi's treachery and the Medici's martyrdom. His image, sculpted and painted by artists like Verrocchio and Botticelli, became an enduring symbol of youthful grace tragically cut short. Lorenzo, though deeply wounded by his brother's loss, used the widespread public outrage to consolidate his own power, executing the conspirators with swift and brutal efficiency. Giuliano de' Medici is often remembered as the victim, the tragic brother whose life was brutally cut short. But his final moments, his unyielding struggle against his attackers, highlight a bravery that is frequently overlooked. He stood in the path of deadly intent, a defender in his own right, even if his defense ultimately failed to save him. His personal courage, his willingness to face violent death, served as a catalyst for the people's outpouring of loyalty to the Medici, a loyalty that ultimately crushed the Pazzi conspiracy and secured the family's continued dominance in Florence. His quiet bravery in the face of impossible odds makes him a true, if tragic, forgotten hero who defended the Medici not through strategy but through ultimate sacrifice. Number 2, Lucrezia Tornabuoni. The Medici family did not merely rule Florence through banking and political machination. Their power was woven through the very fabric of Florentine society, strengthened by alliances, marriages, and a pervasive influence on culture and daily life. Behind many of these crucial connections, often working in the shadows of the prominent male figures, were women of extraordinary intellect and resolve. Lucrezia Tornabuoni, mother of Lorenzo the Magnificent, was one such woman. Her defense of the Medici was not waged on battlefields or in the cutthroat world of banking, but in drawing rooms, at dinner tables, and through the careful cultivation of relationships. She was a silent architect of their enduring power, a forgotten heroine whose strategic mind and social grace prevented countless threats and ensured the family's stability for generations. Born into the powerful Tornabuoni family in 1427, Lucrezia was well-educated, intelligent, and possessed a remarkable strength of character. In 1444, she married Piero di Cosimo de' Medici, the son of Cosimo the Elder, the patriarch who had established the Medici's de facto rule over Florence. This marriage was a cornerstone of the Medici's consolidation of power, linking them to one of Florence's oldest and most respected noble families. From that point, Lucrezia devoted her life to serving the interests of the Medici, not just as a wife and mother, but as a strategic asset. Lucrezia's primary defense of the Medici often revolved around the art of marriage. In Renaissance Italy, dynastic marriages were critical tools for forging alliances, neutralizing rivalries, and securing political influence. Lucrezia took on the crucial role of finding suitable brides for her sons, especially for the ambitious Lorenzo. She traveled extensively, often without male escort, an unusual feat for a woman of her standing. Her letters document these journeys, detailing her observations of potential candidates. She sought not just beauty or dowry, but intelligence, temperament, and connections that would benefit the Medici. One famous example was her search for a wife for Lorenzo. She journeyed to Rome in 1466, carefully observing Clarice Orsini, a member of a powerful Roman noble family. Lucrezia's letters to Piero reveal her shrewd assessment. She noted Clarice's physical appearance, her piety, her potential for bearing healthy children, and most importantly, her family's strong ties to the papacy. The Orsini, though not a banking family like the Florentine elite, were a military power deeply embedded in the Roman aristocracy and the church. Lucrezia understood that marrying into such a family would provide the Medici with crucial political and military support beyond the confines of Florence, a vital buffer against rivals within the city and external threats. Despite Lorenzo's initial reluctance, Lucrezia's persuasive arguments and strategic vision ultimately led to his marriage to Clarice, an alliance that proved invaluable. Beyond marriages, Lucrezia was a master of diplomacy and social networking. She maintained extensive correspondence with powerful figures across Italy, including popes, cardinals, and rulers of other city-states. Her letters were not just personal notes, they were carefully crafted instruments of influence. She would advocate for Medici interests, subtly negotiate on behalf of her sons, and gather intelligence on political developments. Her influence was quiet, pervasive, and incredibly effective. She served as a crucial liaison between the Medici and the church, using her piety and her strong connections to the papal court to secure favors and protect the family's interests, particularly during times of papal hostility towards Florence. Her role extended to managing the family's internal affairs and public image. She was known for her charity, her patronage of religious institutions, and her keen interest in the welfare of ordinary Florentine citizens. She used her position to intercede on behalf of individuals, mediating disputes, providing financial assistance to the needy, and offering solace to the sick. These acts of kindness and benevolence fostered deep loyalty among the Florentine populace, building a popular goodwill that acted as a crucial bulwark against anti-Medici sentiment. During periods of unrest, such as the attempted coup by Luca Pitti in 1466, this popular support was a silent but powerful defense. Lucrezia also played a vital role in nurturing the intellectual and artistic life of the Medici court. She was herself a poet and a patron, surrounding herself with scholars, artists, and philosophers. She encouraged her sons, particularly Lorenzo, in their artistic pursuits, fostering the environment that would make Florence the epicenter of the Renaissance. This cultural patronage was not just a pastime, it was a strategic projection of Medici prestige and soft power, cementing their image as enlightened rulers and diverting attention from their often autocratic tendencies. This cultural defense made the Medici indispensable to Florence's identity. When Piero de' Medici, her husband, fell ill and became increasingly incapacitated, Lucrezia stepped into a more active political role, acting as his eyes and ears and often making decisions on his behalf. She managed large parts of the family's vast network of connections and ensured that affairs of state continued smoothly. Her stability and quiet competence during Piero's declining health were crucial in preventing a power vacuum that could have been exploited by rivals. Lucrezia Tornabuoni died in 1482, 4 years after the Pazzi conspiracy. Her death was a significant loss for Lorenzo, who had relied heavily on her counsel and her diplomatic skills. While her name is often overshadowed by the magnificent title of her son, her contributions were profound and lasting. She built and maintained the intricate web of social, political, and cultural connections that underpinned Medici power. She ensured the strategic marriages that brought powerful allies into the family fold. She cultivated the public image that fostered popular loyalty. Her defense of the Medici was a continuous, subtle, and incredibly effective campaign waged with intellect, grace, and an unyielding commitment to her family's legacy. She is a true forgotten hero, a woman who wielded immense power from behind the scenes, ensuring the survival and prosperity of one of history's most influential dynasties. Number 1. Francesco Nori. In the annals of history, some acts of heroism shine brightly, meticulously recorded and celebrated through generations. Others, equally profound, are relegated to footnotes, their impact understood but their personal sacrifice overshadowed by the grander narrative. Francesco Nori, a trusted friend and loyal companion of Lorenzo the Magnificent, falls into the latter category. His story is one of ultimate sacrifice, a moment of profound courage in the face of brutal, sudden violence that saved the life of Florence's most iconic ruler. His defense of the Medici was not a grand military campaign or a shrewd political maneuver, but a split-second decision that literally placed his own body between his beloved patron and a killer's blade. This singular, selfless act shaped the course of the Renaissance, yet Nori's name is often whispered in history only as an addendum to the infamous Pazzi conspiracy. The year was 1478. The Medici family, under the astute leadership of Lorenzo and his popular younger brother Giuliano, held Florence in their powerful grasp. Their rivals, primarily the ambitious Pazzi family, chafed under Medici dominance. Driven by jealousy, political ambition, and the covert encouragement of Pope Sixtus IV, the Pazzi engineered a daring plot, the assassination of both Lorenzo and Giuliano during High Mass on Easter Sunday in the Florence Cathedral, the Duomo. Their plan was to eliminate the Medici leaders and seize control of the city. On April 26, 1478, the Feast of St. Mark, Florence was filled with a sense of solemn celebration. Lorenzo and Giuliano, accompanied by their inner circle, attended Mass. Among these loyal companions was Francesco Nori, a manager in the Medici Bank, a man of integrity and deep personal devotion to the family. Nori had been a close confidant, someone Lorenzo trusted implicitly, not just with financial matters, but with his personal well-being. He stood near Lorenzo during the service, amidst the solemn rituals and the murmuring crowd. The moment of attack was swift and horrifying. As the priest elevated the host, a signal for the conspirators, the sanctity of the cathedral was shattered by the clash of steel and shouts of violence. Francesco de' Pazzi and Bernardo Bandini Baroncelli fell upon Giuliano, stabbing him repeatedly. Giuliano, caught off guard, quickly succumbed to his wounds, dying on the cathedral floor. Simultaneously, other assassins, including Antonio Maffei da Volterra and Stefano da Bagnon, lunged at Lorenzo. Lorenzo, though wounded in the neck by a dagger blow, reacted with astonishing speed. He drew his own dagger to defend himself, pushing back against his attackers. In the ensuing chaos, with screams echoing through the vast space and people scattering in terror, Francesco Nori did not flee. He did not hesitate. His eyes fixed on the immediate threat to Lorenzo, Nori instinctively threw himself forward. As a dagger, aimed directly at Lorenzo's heart, sliced through the frantic air, Nori moved. He intercepted the blow, taking the full force of the attack meant for his patron. The blade plunged deep into his body. Accounts from the time describe Nori collapsing instantly, his life extinguished in a single selfless act. His sacrifice bought Lorenzo precious seconds, creating a vital shield that allowed Lorenzo's other companions, including the poet Poliziano, to draw their swords and further fend off the remaining assassins. Lorenzo, despite his wounds and the horrific scene unfolding around him, managed to fight his way towards the sacristy doors. His loyal followers formed a protective cordon around him, and he eventually locked himself inside with a few companions, securing his safety. The conspiracy, though tragically successful in ending Giuliano's life, had failed in its primary objective, the assassination of Lorenzo. The immediate aftermath in Florence was a volatile mix of panic and fury. The people, upon realizing the extent of the conspiracy and the sacrilegious nature of the attack, rose up in outrage. They did not side with the Pazzi as the conspirators had hoped. Instead, they rallied around the Medici. The cry of Palais, Palais, the Medici family's emblem, echoed through the streets as citizens hunted down the conspirators, dragging them from their hiding places and lynching them from the windows of the Palazzo della Signoria. The Pazzi family was disgraced, their properties ransacked, their name obliterated from public record. Francesco Nori's body was recovered from the cathedral floor. Of his death, a direct consequence of his loyalty and courage, ensured Lorenzo's survival. Without Nori's immediate intervention, it is highly probable that Lorenzo would have met the same fate as his brother. Lorenzo himself never forgot Nori's sacrifice. He honored Nori's family, providing for them in the years that followed, a testament to his profound gratitude. Nori's act was a pivotal moment. Had Lorenzo died that day, the history of Florence, and indeed the entire Renaissance, would have been drastically different. There would have been no Lorenzo the Magnificent to guide Florence through its golden age, to patronize artists like Michelangelo and Botticelli, to steer the city's complex political landscape, or to maintain the delicate balance of power in Italy for decades. Nori's sacrifice ensured the continuation of the Medici dynasty at its peak. Despite the monumental importance of his sacrifice, Francesco Nori's name often remains in the shadow of the larger narrative of the Pazzi conspiracy and Lorenzo's enduring fame. He was not a general, a pope, or a grand duke. He was a trusted servant, a loyal friend who, in a moment of unimaginable terror, chose to put another's life before his own. His quiet heroism, his ultimate act of defense, makes him the foremost among the forgotten heroes who safeguarded the Medici and, by extension, the flourishing of the Renaissance.